Hello and welcome back to Honest. Now, this is a special edition. I will be reading out everything that is in the big, so-called beautiful bill and who will be impacted by it. Yes, you can read it on honestnetwork.com, all the findings there. If you don't like reading and you like watching or listening, here we go. Here's the readout. Now, fiscal and deficit impacts. It raises the debt ceiling by approximately $4 to $5 trillion. The bill includes approximately $1.2 trillion in spending cuts over 10 years, primarily targeting programs like Medicaid, SNAP, and student loans. Cuts are also funded by unwinding IRA energy investments, reducing clean energy tax credits, and tightening financial regulations. Now, to social safety net reductions, Medicaid. It adds work requirements for adults aged 19 to 64 years old, projected to lead to loss of coverage for over 5 million people. Now, this is the estimate by the White House. Now, according to experts, up to 17 million people will be losing coverage because of this work requirement and also extended processes to get this filed. As to SNAP, it tightens eligibility, raises work requirements to age 65, and shifts more cost burden to the states. As to child tax credit, it increases to $2,500 per child through 2028, but excludes many low, moderate income families. As to education and federal employees, it eliminates interest-free subsidized federal student loans. It creates workforce Pell Grants for vocational training. Now, those grants are federal grants for students enrolled in short-term, career-focused education or training programs, typically less than 15 weeks long. These grants are meant to help students quickly gain skills for employment without having to complete a traditional 2 or 4-year degree. It ends annuity supplement for new federal retirees and quotes saving about $10 billion over 10 years. As to agriculture, it adds approximately $56 billion in new farm subsidies over 10 years. It cuts conservation and environmental funding for nearly $2 billion. As to defense and border enforcement, it provides an additional $144 to $150 billion in defense spending. It allocates $70 to $79 billion for border enforcement, including wall construction and increased deportations. As to tax provisions and business support, it makes 23% pass-through business deduction permanent, reinstates 100% bonus depreciation and R&D expensing. It raises the SALT deduction cap to $40,000 for joint filers. Now, the SALT deduction lets taxpayers deduct state and local income, property or sales tax from their federal taxable income, reducing their overall tax bill, though the deduction is currently capped at $10,000 per year for most filers. It reinstates a higher 1099-K reporting threshold and indexes 1099 MISC limit to inflation. Well, it goes up to 20,200 transactions needed, up from $600. It allows above-the-line reductions for overtime and tips for incomes under 160,000, expands HSA eligibility, and supports employer-provided clinics. It creates a tax credit for employer-provided childcare expenses and introduces choice arrangements with fixed employer credits. Now, the bill creates this new option called choice arrangements that lets small employers receive fixed tax credits up to a set amount for month or per month to help cover health benefits they provide to employees. As to AI, judiciary, and federal rule changes, and this is the most important part here. So it imposes a 10-year federal moratorium on state-level AI regulation. So the states won't be able to pass their legislation and protect their groups and communities from anything AI-related for a decade. It limits judicial enforcement powers against federal officials. So, in other words, courts will have less influence and less ability to ensure the federal agents or federal employees are following the law. In other words, this is the biggest takeaway from this bill. Donald Trump will not be following court orders, nor any federal official will have to follow such orders. It also changes administrative or rulemaking process, requiring congressional approval for new revenue rules. So in other words, the federal agencies must get Congress's okay before implementing new tax or revenue rules. As to environmental and energy policy, it rolls back solar and wind tax credits, halts clean energy payouts under the Inflation Reduction Act, expands support for oil, gas, and nuclear industries, and cuts climate-focused funding and conservation initiatives. So, in summary, it cuts tax, especially for businesses and high-income earners, increases defense and border security spending, while increasing the number of deportations. It significantly reduces health and food assistance eligibility. Now, several sources report that up to 17 million people could lose Medicaid coverage due to new work requirements in the bill, which require most adults aged 19 to 64 to work, train, and volunteer at least 80 hours a month. While official estimates like those from the Congressional Budget Office project around 4.8 million losing coverage by 2034, experts warn the real number could be much higher. Now, it expands agricultural subsidies while cutting conservation, rolls back environmental protections and state AI regulations, reforms education and federal employee benefits, and most importantly, provides courts with less ability to hold federal officials accountable. So the full bill is available online. Also, you can find this summary or this analysis on honestnetwork.com, where I also provided the link to the actual bill if you would like to read it. Now, thank you for watching. See you back on Honest Now.